Hey, it's me, Nalthazar, and welcome to another video. In this one, I'm going to be going over the commons and uncommons that I'm keeping an eye out for as I open my M21 packs. So, there are a bunch of really good ones. Let's go ahead and check them out. The first one is Frantic Inventory. It's 5 mana for a blue spell, and draw X cards, then give them X mana, where X is 1 plus the number of cards named Frantic Inventory in all graveyards, up to 4. It's really not that hard. Dump a whole bunch of things into your graveyard. At the very least, when you're playing this, you're going to start drawing more and more and more cards, which means that you're going to get more and more and more copies of this. So in its final form, it's basically just going to be a draw 4 cards and give them 4 mana, right? Because X is 1 plus the number up to 4. Right? So I guess 1 plus 4. Never mind. Draw 5 cards, give them 5 mana, which means that every Frantic Inventory you draw is just going to auto-cast, which means that if that's what I'm reading, right, if 1 plus the number up to 4, if it goes up to 5, I don't know if it'll wind up capping at 4 or 5. The language doesn't specify entirely, but it means that like Animist's Awakening, Talent of the Telepath, all that kind of stuff will just be able to immediately cast, which means that if you're playing a Prowess deck, because Prowess is going to be bananas, B-A-N-A-N-A-S, that this is going to make Prowess even more bananas. Like, this card has all the makings of greatness. For a common, beautiful. Secure the Scene, 12 mana, spell, white card. Exile an opposing non-land support. If you can't, exile the first opposing creature. Then create a soldier token under your opponent's control. This can affect vanguards. Alright, so this is really sweet because it exiles in opposing non-land support. White's been getting sort of the short end of the stick with their removal lately. Their removal for supports has been exile or destroy target artifact or enchantment. This says non-land support. So granted, it still doesn't affect the lands, but it will get rid of pesky things like Hixis or certain Planeswalker ultimate abilities, unless emblems wind up being untargetable by this nonsense. But nonetheless, at the moment of my making the video, it will be able to destroy them. So that's really good. Furthermore, if your opponent doesn't have supports out, you can go ahead and exile their creatures with this, which is great. You can get rid of their creatures. And on top of that, you're also going to be able to put tokens into play under your opponent's control, which means that for destroy objectives, it makes it easier for you to complete said a destroy objective. If you use this as removal of supports and then you kill the creature separately. If you're using it to exile creatures, that's a different problem. Don't do that for that particular objective. But nonetheless, it's still a fairly flexible card for a common. 12 mana is a bit prohibitive, which is probably why it's a common, but nonetheless, it's not bad. This brings us to the uncommons, and the first of the uncommons is Bad Deal. So Bad Deal is 11, it's a black spell, and you draw 2 cards, your opponent discards 2 cards, and loses 2 life. So that they lose 2 life is like pointless, but for black, you draw 2 and your opponent discards 2 is honestly kind of decent. And there's a whole bunch of ways to either cheat spells back for free or play them for less mana. So the 11 mana on this thing is going to be less prohibitive. I see this being a pretty cool card in black. I'm definitely going to try it out. And if I like it, I'll play it a lot. And if I don't like it, oh well, it's just an uncommon. But it definitely looks cool. It stood out to me. Cultivate. I'm pretty sure that this card is on everyone's list. I'm really hoping that we get the alternate art version from Fiblethip for this card, because the alternate art for Cultivate is beautiful. It's one of the most beautiful artworks on any card in Magic, in my opinion. It's absolutely gorgeous. So I would love to have that art in Puzzle Quest, especially for a card that's as darn good as Cultivate. So Cultivate is 8 mana, convert 8 gems to your Planeswalker's colors, then fetch the first land card from your library and give it half of its mana. So once again, you've been hearing a lot of prowess from me. This is going to convert gems, and it's going to fetch a land and give it mana. So not only is it going to replace itself in your hand, but it's going to give the other things in your hand mana, and the thing that it gives you to replace itself is getting mana too. So it's just going to make it so that the loop keeps going. And by the way, lands are supports, so that's going to trigger prowess too. Yeah, this card, very nice. Especially like if you're running this with like Circuitous Root in a gate deck, right? Because Circuitous Root is going to get you gates, Cultivate's going to get you gates, Omen of the Hunt is going to get you gates. If you play this in a gate deck before gates go out of standard, you can do some horrible things with that, guys. Really horrible things. But nonetheless, yeah, Cultivate is wacky good. Like, oh man, convert 8 gems. So beautiful. That is an uncommon. This one should not have been uncommon, guys. Faith's Fetters. This is 8 mana for exile and opposing non-land support. It can affect vanguards, and when you cast this, gain 6 life. I really like this because, for the same reason as the earlier white card, this gives you actually a pretty good white removal of supports. It exiles it, it only costs 8, which is reasonable, and it gains 6 life for some of those cards that have Renew. I'm not of the opinion yet that Renew is a particularly great mechanic, but nonetheless, gaining life off of your support destruction is not bad at all. This is a very decent card. It's a card that I see myself using in my white decks, just because white doesn't have a whole lot of stuff that can get rid of like most types of supports, so this is pretty good. See the Truth is going to be another friend to Prowess. So it's 8 mana, pick one of the first 4 cards from your library, fetch that card and give it 5 mana, which is super sweet because you play it, it's going to trigger Prowess, and then you're going to get another card and give it 5 mana. So you're going to be able to get another gem converter or another thing that draws cards and gives mana or some other goodness like that. If you're playing it in like with gates, you just get to auto play that gate. So there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with this card. It also has a bottom half that says when you cast this card, if you control a creature with anticipation or resourceful, pick 2 cards instead and give them both 4 mana, which is also pretty good. I personally would prefer to get 1 and have it gain 5 because that enables me to auto cast stuff like Talent of the Telepath or the blue common from earlier in this video, or Animist's Awakening, or if I chose to use this in Legacy, Rishkar's Expertise, but, you know, it's still a pretty good looking card to me. Talarian Kraken. So I really like this for newer players, all right? So this isn't one for like you people with like full collections, but 16 for a 5/7 with Resourceful 1, the first opposing enabled creature is disabled until end of turn, really isn't all that bad, right? I mean, I know that it's only until end of turn, but you can disable a whole bunch of critters until end of turn. If you're playing stuff with Flash and that draws cards, then during your opponent's turn, you can start disabling their creatures. It just means that you can swing through. So it just stood out to me as a card that like I would at least want to try on my new account. It definitely doesn't look great. It's not as interesting to me as the other cards in this video, especially because the disable is just until end of turn and not until the beginning of your next turn, but it still looks kind of cool. Unleash Fury is going to be so good. It's like Falcon punching someone to the face like this dude is. Look at him. He's so ripped. I want to be like this dude minus the hairstyle. Like, maybe even I'll take the mustache too. I can't do that. I can't grow facial hair like this dude. He's a boss. Look at that. Anyways, he's 11 mana, or he's not 11 mana, it's a spell. Who am I kidding? It's an 11 mana spell. It's got Flash. Target creature you control gets +X/+0 until end of turn, where X is that creature's power. So basically, double a creature's power until end of turn. Goodness gracious, did we need more stuff that did that? I don't think so. Put this thing on Quartzwood Crasher, have it already with Double Strike and Xenagos. That token's just going to flat out destroy that turn. That's it. The end. Game over. You consider all the other wacky things in the set, the new red support that doubles your spell casts, or like Repeated Reverberation, which is not from this set, but nonetheless you could use with this thing and get a whole bunch of casts of this thing down. And then, oh, I don't know, Fiery Emancipation, which means that now this is going to do an extra 11 damage to the opponent. Oh my word, there is so much wacky stuff you can do with this. Red is really in its golden era right now, guys. This is a pretty strong card, especially if you got strong creatures that you can use. This is going to be nutty strong. Nutty strong. Volcanic Geyser. This is sort of like a poor man's Electrodominance. It's 4 mana instead of 6. It has Flash, just like Electrodominance. It has a stored mana of 10, just like Electrodominance. And it deals X damage to any target, just like Electrodominance. However, it does not give you mana back. That being said, I do like that this has the flexibility to burn anything. I do really like Electrodominance. I really liked playing Banefire when that was in Standard too. So this just gives me an extra thing to play it with. The only downside to this card is not all the cards that say like fetch a spell and give it full mana are actually filling up the stored mana right now, which means that sort of limits it a little bit. But nonetheless, this is still a pretty good card, especially for you newer players. This is going to have great removal potential for you. And for you people who are not newer, it's still nonetheless going to be pretty strong. So I really like the look of this card, not just the art, but the ability. I will be using this card for sure. Next up is Waker of Waves. I actually really like this card. So it's 20 for an 8/8. While on the battlefield, each opposing creature gets -2/-0, and at the end of your turn, if this card is in your hand, you may discard it. If you do, pick one of the first 2 cards from your library and fetch that card. So let's say that you're playing this with Unbreakable Bond, right? You've got this thing in your hand, so you choose to discard this to fetch something else from your library. You're putting an 8/8 body with, while on the battlefield, each opposing creature gets -2/-0 into your graveyard, which now immediately makes it a target for something like Unbreakable Bond, and then you bring it back with lifelink. So what I really like about this card is that it's a pretty beefy creature that puts itself in the graveyard from your hand, and it replaces itself by fetching without having to spend any mana. And there's just so much that you can use right now to bring things back from the graveyard that this actually looks pretty decent to me. I'm honestly going to be trying this with my main account, not even just a new account. This card looks really good to me. So definitely a very cool design for a card. This brings us to Wildwood Scourge. It's 10 mana for a 1/1. It's got a stored mana of 5, meaning it could come in as a 6/6. And then when a creature you control is buffed, if that creature is not a Hydra, this creature gets +2/+2. What I want to know is if this creature is going to accept reinforcements for buffs, because if so, then that means that when you're playing Nissa Worldwaker, not that I like her, but I love her, and you're playing all those tokens, then Wildwood Scourge is going to get buffed up really quickly by you playing those tokens and them reinforcing themselves. I see this kind of as a poor man's Papa Yorvo, but nonetheless, it still looks pretty cool to me. I like it. So we'll have to see if it works as I want it to. If it doesn't work as I want it to, then it's not good. But if it does work as I want it to, then it is good. And yeah, that's the last one on my list. All right, so those are all the commons and uncommons that I'm going to be looking out for. Cultivate is definitely the cream of the crop here, along with that first blue card. They are very, very good cards. Oh yeah, and the red Falcon Punch card, right? Ooh, wow, I just Falcon kicked my desk. Wobble, 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 wobble. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Good luck in your M21 pulls, and I'll see you in the next one.